but either which way you hold it, I think it is comfortable.
Absolutely. And with practice, you kind of stop putting your fingers where they shouldn't go. Hi there, and welcome back to the VapeLoft YouTube channel. My name is Anton.
And my name is Vlad.
Before we get started on this final showdown, we'd just like to let you know that at the end of the video, we will be doing an awesome giveaway. So stay tuned, listen in, and pay attention.
All three mean the same thing.
Bro.
Today's a special edition of VapeLoft Reviews because we're actually going to be facing off two competing mods, the Reuleaux RX75 and the iStick PICO.
The reason for this video is because we've gotten a lot of questions from our customers asking what the difference between the two is and which one is better of the two.
For the purpose of today's video, we're only going to be comparing the express standalone versions of these units. So the first thing we got to talk about is the price.
That's correct. Between vendors, the prices do tend to vary. However, on average, the iStick PICO costs $44.99 plus tax, whereas the RX75 comes in at $49.99 plus tax. Canadian.
All you American people out there, we know you get your stuff cheaper. We hate you. As far as a mid-level device goes, both I think are fairly priced.
Yeah.
There are a lot of devices that fall in between the $40 to $60 range, and these two are actually one of the more competitively priced products on the market right now.
That's true. Based on price, the PICO takes this one. Alright, so the PICO has 1 point, the RX is sitting at 0 for now. Let's move on to the feature list and see which one takes the second point.
So regardless of which device you end up getting, they are almost point for point the same on features. There's a lot of great stuff there. I mean, wattage mode is an obvious thing. Bypass mode is a nice little bonus. Temperature control mode on nickel, titanium, stainless steel, it's all there. And both actually have a fantastic addition of memory modes for TCR. Both devices have a total of 3 memory modes, pretty equal in that regard.
Absolutely. Another thing worth mentioning is both devices have a voltage option where you can see the current voltage of the battery, and also have the option to edit the memory mode by pressing the down and the fire button when your device is off.
But the one thing that we were a little bit disappointed with the PICO lacking was the amp draw.
It's true. That's a very handy little feature that the RX came up with, and you know, it doesn't impact your vaping experience, but it does give you a little bit more information about your device, which is always nice. Now, on top of that, the RX actually has a couple of features that the PICO does not. Examples being the puff counter, the timer, and also a convenient locking mechanism, which is when you switch the locking mechanism, you are unable to press the fire button. You know, the feature lists are very similar, however, the RX does have some extra features, and that is why this point is going to the RX75. So let's start off by talking about size. Alright, so the PICO is significantly smaller, it's sleeker, and the aesthetics look a lot friendlier. There's no sharp corners, there isn't really any buttons on the screen that you can see. It just looks about like a very friendly device, which is very good for starters.
Yeah, the RX75 does not have the same friendly appeal of the PICO, and when we were talking about it earlier, I actually said that the RX75 looks a bit like what people in the 1970s would consider futuristic. Yeah, you watch those old movies from the 70s and 80s where they have all these crazy futuristic time travel machines and
flying cars,
and it's all these jagged, rough edges, and that's pretty much what this device looks like. I still like it. It still looks cool as hell. But
it does have a little bit of a retro look. Other than size, there's also the display unit that we need to talk about. The PICO has a very small, friendly looking screen. There aren't too many features on it, so it doesn't get jumbled up and look all messy.
Very streamlined, very simple to find whatever it is that you're looking for because there aren't a lot of elements. and that's in stark contrast to the RX75.
Oh yeah.
That display is just filled to the brim with information, which could be a positive to some.
It's not the friendliest looking. It's absolutely not the friendliest looking. It kind of looks like my room.
Both devices hide their controls, but in slightly different ways. As we talked about in the PICO review, the PICO hides the controls away underneath the device.
The RX75 went the opposite direction and put all the buttons on the front. However, they hid it behind a little swiveling door that if you saw the RX first impressions video, you saw Vlad really entertained with.
Honestly though, I do prefer the RX75 design for the controls, simply because it's more intuitive to have the controls on the front of the device.
Oh yeah.
And plus, the door just protects your controls and your screen.
There is also the issue with the PICO where when you want to change the settings, you have to do a weird little dance where you're leveling the screen and pressing the buttons. It's not very intuitive. The RX75, in my opinion, did a better job of covering the screen and making the controls out of sight.
The last design point we wanted to cover, and this is a con for both devices, is the fact that both the PICO and the RX75 restrict you to using only 22mm tanks. Even if you have a 22mm tank like the UL Crown, sometimes the airflow control actually extends beyond the 22mm diameter, which, because of the raised battery cap, is going to be an issue. Based on all of these things, the RX75 wins by the tiniest of margins. But on a technicality, RX75 wins.
This time.
This time.
So that brings us up to 2-1, the RX to the PICO.
The next portion of this face-off is build quality.
Let's talk about the RX. It's a little clicky when you're moving it around, the screen wobbles a little bit, the buttons don't feel very expensive, it almost feels like a toy more than a sleek looking expensive mod.
The RX75 can sometimes feel like a maraca. You grab it by the tank and you shake it up, and there's a lot of stuff going on there. There's a lot of swiveling, there's a lot of clicking, and that just makes me think of like a children's toy. I mean, that's not to say that this is a terribly built device, not by a long shot. It is a very nice device. But
however, it will make some noise.
The PICO, this device is just beautifully built.
It feels great. It feels like a very expensive mod.
It's so solid. The threading on the battery cap is buttery smooth. There are no sharp edges. Everything is machined so well. Everything is even. Even the buttons feel high quality. No wiggling.
Very symmetric. The buttons are high quality. They're not going to easily press by accident. Everything is kind of thought out very well and designed perfectly.
This is a pretty obvious PICO win.
I think so. I definitely agree.
So now we're at 2-2. It's a tie so far.
So let's move on and see who comes out on top. So what are we going to talk about next, Vlad? Shall we talk about how comfortable these guys are?
Well, we'll talk about how comfortable one of them is.
The PICO is a small, sleek, friendly-looking device. With that in mind, some would argue the PICO might actually be too small. If you have big hands and sausage fingers, the PICO is going to feel like a tiny little bird in your hand. You have to position your hands correctly in order to be able to press the button. It's not necessarily comfortable if you have larger hands.
And there's this new trend in vaporizers where you design the body to sort of adhere to your hand, kind of like a handle. And this is something that the RX75 does very well. The PICO, on the other hand, it doesn't seem very ergonomic to me. It doesn't feel like it's meant to be held in a hand. My fingers have to curl awkwardly around it. The RX75, it feels like a handle.
It grips perfectly.
Yeah.
And on top of that, you don't have to worry about your finger placement because you just squeeze it to fire and it couldn't be any easier to press. Now the RX75 does have a shortcoming that I think is worth mentioning. When I want to fire it with the palm of my hand as opposed to with my fingers, I find that my fingers actually go over and cover the air holes on the tank I'm using. It's not a big deal, not a deal breaker by any means, but it is something that we found worth mentioning.
So while the RX75 is a little bit more comfortable to hold and to have in your hands, the PICO is a more comfortable device to have on the go. The smaller size of the PICO makes it a lot easier to slip in your pocket, in your purse, wherever you may want to keep it. The RX75 is quite a bit taller, and it would jut out a little bit. And lastly, this is not an ergonomics issue, it's more of a comfort issue, but it is a little bit counterintuitive, a little bit annoying to enter into the menu on the RX75. So if you've been vaping for a while, you know that most devices, you triple click the fire button and then you can start editing, whether you're in wattage mode, bypass mode, temperature control mode. On the PICO, it works in the same exact way that it has worked for years now. 3 clicks on its main fire button, you're in the menu. The RX75, on the other hand, because you have the grip firing mechanism, it is a little bit annoying to triple grip it. You don't have that same dexterity when clicking the button. You might not grip it quickly enough. Gotta be practicing your forearm exercises.
Snap, 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 snap. I think that brings us to a tie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So right now we're at 3-3. So this is the main course of the video, so to speak. This is the one thing everyone asks us about: performance. Does the PICO perform better than the RX75? Does the RX75 chuck bigger clouds? Do they have more efficient battery performance? Which one is better?
We put 2 equally charged batteries into both devices, and we tried them on equal settings on all different types of modes. And what we found is
they're pretty much the same.
Yeah, pretty anticlimactic, guys. Both devices perform phenomenally. You know, the differences are minuscule. That actually brings us over to the fact that we think both devices are worth getting. With the PICO and the RX, it's really a matter of style preference. We couldn't figure out which one we like better, and that's why I'm using the RX and Vlad is using the PICO. Overall, it seems like this is gonna be another tie. And that actually brings us over to the conclusion.
So if we tally all of these points up, we're left with a 4-4 tie.
There is no clear winner. Both devices are phenomenal. They're just made for different people. So it really depends on you, our lovely vapors. Which leads us on to our awesome giveaway.
We promised we'd be giving away an RX75 kit with an Amore mini tank. But since we couldn't decide on a victor for this video, we're also going to be giving away a PICO device with a Cleito tank. Oh yeah.
I'm gonna go home and watch this video.
You should.
I will.
Make sure to upload.
Alright, so what do I have to do to win this giveaway, Vlad?
Because we couldn't decide on a winner, you, our lovely viewers, are going to be the tiebreaker. All you have to do to enter the contest, if you haven't already, subscribe to our channel and comment down here on which device you think should win this face-off and why. We hope you enjoyed this face-off. There's going to be plenty more coming, and yeah, let us know how we did. If you'd like to see any changes to our format, if you want us to talk about anything else.
If you want us to review any specific device, any more face-offs, you just let us know. We will gladly listen. And I believe that brings us to the end of our video.
So, like always, stay cloudy, my friends.
And keep it fresh.